Hi everybody and welcome to today's webinar, Payroll and Cloud Platforms. So this webinar is aimed at giving you more information about cloud technology and cloud computing. We will outline what it means, we'll go through how you can utilize it best for your business and hopefully highlight why it's a tool you want your employees to have. Now, I know that the scope and shape of how you use the cloud and technology in general will differ from business to business, but the benefits of cloud platforms, they really are universal. So firstly, we will do the introductions. We have two speakers presenting today's webinar. Jen McBride is my name. I'm the onboarding specialist here for our cloud-based products, and Laura Murphy is the HR manager here at Saurus Software.
Hello everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. We've just put up our agenda here for you. So as you can see, we've plenty to get through today on cloud computing and how it ties in with your payroll, your employees, and then as well we give you some tips on what to look for when you're picking a cloud platform. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. As always, we'll have our Q&A session at the end, but please do type in your questions into the text box as you think of them. We'll be happy to take them at the end. If we don't get to any questions, we'll certainly email you afterwards as well. And again, today's session is being recorded, and we'll email everybody with a link and a copy of the recording afterwards.
Okay, so we'll just hop right into it. Cloud computing. So firstly, what exactly is cloud computing? Cloud computing is a general term for anything that involves delivering hosted services over the internet. So basically, cloud computing is using the internet to deliver your computing services. So things like servers, online storage, databases, networking. So getting those over the internet, or what's kind of commonly now known as the cloud. So cloud users access things like apps and programs by logging in from a device that has internet connection. So think your phones, your tablets, your iPads, your laptops. And with the cloud, that information and those programs are managed by outside parties. And they are managed on a network of secure data centers instead of the old traditional method of having them stored on a hard drive. So what this does is it frees up power on your computer. It gives you access to a whole host of communication and collaboration tools. It allows you to use the most up-to-date technology, and it gives you peace of mind that your data is secure. And I suppose it allows you to access information regardless of where you are or what device you're using. So here actually, this is an interesting statistic for you. 95% of people in the EU use cloud computing in some form of another. But actually, a lot of them don't even realize that they are using it. Think about it. So do you use Facebook, or do you use Twitter? Do you watch Netflix? Do you listen to Spotify? If the answer to any of those is yes, or if you use any social media sites or video sharing sites like YouTube, then you're already using cloud technology. So I personally am an avid technology user. I couldn't be without it. But social media and YouTube, they are great, but there is actually a lot more to cloud technology than just entertainment. It's genuinely a powerful tool, and it is really changing how our workplaces operate. Many, if not all of you, are already using cloud applications every day in your workplace. Think if you're using the likes of email. Are you using social media for marketing or for communicating with your customers, say like Facebook Messenger maybe? Are you using Google Drive or Dropbox with your employees for file sharing? Even down to things like online banking or even Revenue's online services. If you're using any of these, then you're already using cloud-based technology, and you probably rely on those tools to the point where you couldn't imagine running your business without them. That's the key point I want you to keep in mind when you think about your payroll going forward and your role as an employer.
Absolutely, Jen. Just to come in there before we go on, you're talking there about change in workplaces and how technology is changing the workplaces. And just a few stats again, if I may, into some research done on employee attitudes. It showed that 48% apologies, of people believe that technological advancements will be the single biggest impact on the future of their workplaces. 51% are excited about this, and quite a high percentage are willing to adapt their skills for the changing workplace as well. So I think it's very positive, the attitude there.
Yeah, it's a pretty significant number of employees who are more than happy to kind of adapt, I suppose, if the right tools are given to them. Like, it really does show how much technology is changing the way we work, and definitely how we conduct businesses.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that Jen has kind of described what the cloud technology is, we know that we actually do trust it, and we rely on it heavily, and it has become part of our daily lives. The next question that we want to ask is, are we using cloud technology to its full capability? Is your business taking full advantage of the benefits that are available that cloud technology can bring? And as a business owner and an employer, the cloud can be a huge benefit to you. The right cloud platform can go a long way in helping you meet your employer obligations and a range of other benefits that we want to explore now. So we see that there are 4 key benefits that cloud technologies can offer employers in terms of managing their employee administration. And I want to just look at the 4 headings, I suppose, first, and then we'll go into them in more detail. So firstly, cloud technology can greatly assist you in meeting your legal employer obligations. And for me, this is probably one of the most important points, because as an employer, first and foremost, you want to be sure that you're meeting what you have to do legally. But there are other benefits in terms of creating huge efficiencies in your workplace. It can really help improve communications, not just with your employees, but with a number of different parties that you interact with and that you work with. And it can also portray you as an employer of choice. And I want to talk about them in more detail, but we'll start off with the first one that I want to look at is payroll. With payroll backups in the cloud, you never have to worry about losing your payroll data again. So for example, in the event that you needed to redo your payroll because your PC became corrupt, for example, if you don't have a backup, you would be starting from scratch in terms of having to redo your payroll. And so in a situation where an employee had an updated RPN and their credits and cutoffs had changed in the intervening period, you'd find it really, particularly in today's world of the PAYE modernization, in terms of having to recreate your payroll when somebody had updated RPNs, that is going to be very, very difficult without a reliable backup. And we've unfortunately had a couple of customers who've had to do this, and unfortunately from our point of view, there's limited support that our support team can provide here, so it's not an easy task.
Yeah, I was actually helping a customer recently who was taking backups on a USB stick. They then needed to roll back their payroll using their backup, but when they went to restore it from the USB key, it turned out it was corrupt and unusable. It was a terrible situation for them. They thought they were covered, and when it turned out that they weren't, it actually did cause quite a few problems for them.
Yeah, and on personal evidence, I once lost a lot of photographs on a USB key, so my love for USB keys is limited. So just to move on then to the GDPR aspect, and this was the buzzword from last year, 2018, when the regulations came in. And I don't want to talk about too much about GDPR. I know last year we did a range of webinars, and we could certainly talk all day about GDPR, probably bore you a little bit, but I just want to briefly talk about GDPR and the cloud. When the regulations came in last year, they did significantly increase employers' obligations in terms of how they collect and use and protect personal data, all kinds of personal data, your customers' data, but also your employees' data. And we're going to focus on the employee data here. I don't know if you know, but just to give you a bit of the facts behind it, the GDPR legislation itself is not just one document. It's made up of 173 recitals and 99 articles. And to be even more specific, recital 63, that deals with the subject of access requests. And the basic principle here has not changed, in that anyone whose personal data you are processing has the right to access that data. They should be able to access it easily and as often as they desire. This allows them to check that you are processing their personal data lawful. So this has always been the case, and it's nothing new here. Employees have always been able to make a subject access request to view their employee files and the records that you have on them. But what is new is that Recycle 63 also says that, and I quote here, you should try to provide some form of remote system by which your users can access their personal data, but ensure that that other users' personal data remains secure. So whilst the legislation has not made it mandatory to have an employee self-service system, I think any employer who wants to be seen to be taking the GDPR legislation seriously and wants to be seen as proactive in the matter, you'd certainly be well advised to consider implementing an employee self-service remote system whereby employees can log in at any time whenever they want and view their details, view the details that you as a company, as an employer, are holding on them. What the legislation also sets out is that an individual or an employee has the right to make sure that data is correct and up to date, and that they can make requests to have that change made. So again, a two-way self-service employee login system will really allow that to happen, and again put your best foot forward in terms of complying with those regulations. And of course, if you do consider an employee self-service for this reason, and for any reason, really, one of the things you want to be looking at is the security aspect to it. But I know Jen is going to touch on that a little bit later on as well. Okay, so sticking with how the cloud can help you meet your employer obligations and your legal obligations, the next point I wanted to just touch on was contracts of employment and terms of employment. Obviously, you all know you have to have contracts of employment in place, and once you have a good contract written and a robust one, using cloud technology to distribute and share that with the employee can really help you meet your obligations. You're probably all familiar at this stage that the time frame for providing your contracts of employment to new staff was cut dramatically last spring. So now employers only have 5 days to get their contracts out to new employees. So if you think about it, if you're going to be on leave or if you're not based at the same location as your new employee, meeting that 5-day limit could be tough. So I suppose that's where the cloud can help you, being able to upload your contracts and other documentation into the cloud and then share it with your employees from there. That could really be a lifesaver.
Yeah, can I actually just pop in there, Laura? My perspective, anything that makes the employer's life easier, it's what you want. One of the great features of online systems when it comes to documentation is that it can offer like an audit or an activity log. So it should potentially give time and date stamps in relation to when your employees actually access the documentation. So you just have the knowledge of, knowing that you can check that your employees have seen and accessed those policies that you're sending to them.
Yeah, and that's not just a Big Brother tool, but it really is a fantastic tool in terms of compliance for employers. Okay, so the final and fourth way, the fourth and final, should I say, way that cloud technologies can help you meet your employer obligations is the holding of records. So under the Organisation of Working Time Act, employers are required to hold various employment leave records for differing periods of time. Now, in my experience from working with small employers, sometimes the record keeping side of things can be something that we let slip, or perhaps we're maybe not as diligent with as we might be with, say, our payroll files, which we tend to be very good about keeping them. Obviously, we have the revenue reasons and payroll need to be correct, but being less diligent with your other records is really something that we probably do at our peril. And I say that because even looking at the stats from 2017 on WRC workplace inspections, 50% of all inspections that failed were due to the employer having insufficient records. So it is by far the most common reason why an employee is going to fail a WRC inspection. And with over half of inspections happening unannounced, when the inspector arrives, they'll want to see then and there your employee records. They'll expect you to have them to hand and for them to be readily accessible. So you need to be prepared for that. So whether it is annual leave, sick leave, maternity leave, parental leave, that's topical a little bit at the moment, you need to ask yourself, are all your records firstly up to date and are they easily accessible? So I suppose that's where a good cloud system can come in, and it will help you record this information, and meaning that it's stored centrally first and that it's available really at the click of a button when you need it. So there's less panic, I suppose.
Yeah, and it also means less paper files, which that can really only be a good thing.
Absolutely, you've seen my desk. Okay, so we're moving on to the second of our 4 points in terms of how the cloud technology can improve your business or give benefits. And I just wanted to look at the creating efficiencies. One of the most immediate benefits of using the software once you've implemented it is that it will improve the efficiencies in your team. So you think about the repetitive admin intensive tasks, such as chasing managers to approve holidays or get sick certs in. They can now be delegated and streamlined to managers through a self-service functionality.
Yeah, in my previous role, I was responsible for all of those admin tasks. I honestly don't know how many times I have said, if I had a system that could have sped up those jobs for me, could have tracked them or taken some of the workload, my life would have been an awful lot easier.
Jen, I think you'll have to talk to your old employer and introduce the cloud to them. But also the cloud will help you make informed decisions faster. A good cloud platform should make it easy for you to find, analyze, and report on the data that matters in your organization. And again, as we said earlier, all the information will be available at your fingertips.
Yeah, the fact that cloud technology is now accessible from anywhere, your business can become much more flexible. So like apps and data are not tied to a device or a specific computer. You can have access like at meetings, on the road, out with a customer, on the site, or like dealing with a supplier, also for letting your employees communicate with you. You know, so when you get back to the office, you don't spend the next hour trying to catch up on things.
Absolutely, it just adds greater efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move on to improving communications within your workplace. And as we've said already, it can improve communications with both your employees and your stakeholders and different people that you work with. So we're looking at employees, and by virtue of the fact that your company information and your policies can be shared with employees through the cloud, so that employees can have access to them whenever they need them, including on their phone. You also, not to mention then the fact that your employees work, if you have employees that work across different sites and are not office based, they can still have access to that information. So the fact that employees can have company information at their fingertips really is invaluable. It can help prevent misunderstandings, possible conflict, and it can also really help to improve your employee engagement. In terms of your stakeholders, your suppliers, different people that you work with, cloud technologies can really enable you to share certain data with necessary external stakeholders really easily as well.
Yeah, if you want a quick example of that, something like being able to allow your pension broker to access those pension reports for your employees when they need them, with kind of eliminating the need for them to go through you.
So there'll be no back and forth emails, they can just log into a system.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes one step out of the process.
Excellent. Okay, so then the last one here is how the cloud can portray you as an employer of choice. And becoming an employer of choice really has never been more important, especially as we are near full employment at the moment. I think, 5.2% was one of the more recent stats in terms of unemployment. And certainly a quick search on any of the main job boards will show an abundance of available jobs. It's definitely a job seekers market out there. So the challenge for employers, therefore, is definitely how do you attract and how do you retain the best candidates? And I purposely say retain there as well, because with the plentiful jobs, people tend to be moving, and also probably particularly the younger workforce. There's a stat from last year that 28% of younger workers changed jobs last year, while it was a lot lower for older employees. But as I said, that poses the question: how do you attract and retain talent? And well, that's quite an open question, and we could talk all day about attracting and retaining talent. But certainly the cloud can help you. If you think about it, in the era of smartphones, consumers today expect so much from their phones. We shop on them, we bank on them, we track our health on them. The list is endless, and you know that. But today, consumers also expect to be able to communicate with their employers on their phones. They want to book annual leave on their phones. They want to check their pay slips. They want to double check a policy at the touch of a screen. And particularly if you employ a digital native, then the above definitely applies. So a digital native is anybody who has grown up in the digital era. They've never known an age without technology. So they simply just expect all of this to be on their phone and available to them. And even some of us older digital immigrants who've had to learn technology, but we also have become quite dependent on it, and we also expect our employers to match that expectation. So certainly that's where the cloud can come in and help. A user-friendly, well-designed platform can really help you to transform your employees and prospective employees' perceptions of your company, and helping them to see it, or to see you as a forward-thinking company in terms of technology, and a company that's thinking about your employees. Okay, so that's the benefits to the employer, and we'll move on now to just very briefly some of the benefits to your employees. So I suppose with the self-service portals, employee hubs and smartphone apps becoming a standard offering of many HR software solutions, employees are able to input and review their own personal information. They have access to all sorts of different information like their pay slips, documents, annual leave calendar. So that saves time really on them having to contact their manager to get all this information. If they're going for a loan, they have all their pay slips there available in their phone. They don't have to come and bother their manager or whoever looks after payroll for the last so many copies of their pay slips. So the key benefits of all of this is obviously that it reduces that dependency on management, freeing up their time to focus on what they need to do. It improves the employee experience. We talked about that just a minute ago and how important that is. And employees can feel valued, that they have, again, that forward-thinking employer. It improves employee efficiencies by having that 24/7 access to company information. There's greater transparency. Everybody is clear on what the status quo is on whatever the matter can be at the time. And I think certainly that can only be a good thing.
Laura, just in terms of the employee engagement side of things, doing some research last week, I actually came across an article about employee engagement, and it said that businesses who have engaged employees are able to bring in, I think it was 21% more profit than those who don't. It said that employees, when they feel engaged, they are more dedicated to their employers, and they work harder for their company. And I thought that was a really interesting article, especially if you take into account what you said just a little bit ago about the near full employment rates in Ireland. Goes to show really how important it is to keep your employees invested in your company.
Absolutely.
So I'll take here now what you're going to want to look for in a cloud platform. So the main thing I suppose I want you to know is how can a cloud platform work for your business, and how do you find the right one? And from my perspective, there are, again, 4 main things you want to keep in mind when you start looking for the right platform for your business. And these are, briefly, the costs. How well will it help me stay compliant? How easy is it to use? And how will it help me stay connected? So the first factor to consider is obviously cost. And moving over to the cloud should be cost effective. I suppose since it doesn't require you to purchase any hardware or any particular software, this should minimize upfront costs from the start. Great, but you also want a product that can grow as your business grows, or that could potentially accommodate a temporary slowdown in business. So for example, in a seasonal business, or maybe in a tourism-based business, that has fluctuations. So you're not paying for something that you don't need or that you can't use, or worse still, that you find yourself outgrowing your product. And along with this, you want a cloud product that reduces your man-hour costs. You want it to take the time-consuming tasks off your desk, those admin tasks that distract you from getting your actual work done. And I think specifically, I would advise that you look for a product that facilitates multiple users. That will be one that allows you to, I suppose, delegate tasks, tasks like approving holiday requests or managing the access to your payroll reports. This is really a feature you don't want to sacrifice when choosing a product. It's a huge part of, I suppose, what makes cloud computing cost effective for a business. So do keep that in mind going forward when you're doing your research. The second factor is compliance. As Laura spoke about earlier, compliance is a huge factor in business. It's something you want to keep at the forefront of your mind, and you want to invest in a product that takes into account the obligations that you have as an employer, both under employment law and under GDPR. You want one that has features that make compliance in those regards easy and stress-free. Now, Laura did go through a lot of the employer obligations earlier, so I won't delve into it in too much detail, but I do want to emphasize how important this aspect is. It could actually be the difference between a stress-free WRC inspection or an out-and-out disaster. It's something that you should be very, very mindful of when you're looking into these sort of things. Again, one thing you want to look for is simplicity. Pick a product that removes the chances for human error. Pick a platform that it's user-friendly. Pick one that has training and support for you in setting it up and in using it going forward. The best cloud vendors will provide you proper tools, proper online resources, education and training that you need to get up and running. You want to get up and running and make that transition smooth and with the minimum amount of disruption to your business. If you think a product is too difficult to navigate, you're unlikely to ever use it properly, and you're really even less likely to still be using it down the line. A cloud platform should make your life easier, not more stressful. So bear that in mind when you are looking at the products. So lastly, think about keeping a connection. Pick a product with really, really attractive employee features, like an employee self-service app. This will make your current employees and your prospective employees know that you're a progressive company. Like Laura said earlier, know that you're a company that takes an interest in your employees. And from your perspective, keeping a line of communication open with your employees is really vital to knowing what's going on in your business and in your company on the ground. Look, at the end of the day, your employees are not going to be excited about something unless it works for them. You need your employees to be on board with it, so keep that in mind. Now, hopefully you feel like you have a little bit more of a handle on what the cloud is, why it's a fairly important part of any business, and from what I can see and from what we've experienced here, it's really becoming more and more important to stay ahead of technology, but also mainly, I suppose, I want to drill home to you what a great resource it is at the end of the day. All of that being said, it's all very relevant to today's workplace, but I am conscious of the fact that it is all quite academic. It might be a little bit hard, I suppose, from an SME perspective to see how this sort of thing would work in the real world. So I kind of want to tie it down a little bit by showing you how it can link in with your payroll, because Saurus does have its own cloud-based product. It's called Connect. So Saurus Connect is an add-on to our Payroll Manager product, and it was launched initially back in mid-2017. And then we followed that up with an employee self-service app being launched last year. And since then, it's actually developed into a really key tool for our customers, and it's had a huge surge of users this year. Partly, I think this seems to be in response to the new GDPR legislation. Partly, I think, in response to the employment law updates that have happened recently, definitely POA modernisation, and I suppose just with our customers becoming more aware of their data obligations and more comfortable with cloud platforms. So Connect, it's quite a multifunctional tool, and it has a broad range of features. So I'll break down those features in just a second. But essentially, as a whole, I suppose Saurus Connect provides a way for you as an employer to link your payroll data to the cloud, but then to also use that data in new ways to help and to benefit your business. So above everything else, Connect is a secure online backup for your Saurus payroll data. And then once it is initially set up, it takes chronological backups each time you use your payroll manager. So it allows employers, yourself, 24/7 access to your employee data, to all payroll reports, to all amounts due and paid to revenue, to all annual leave requests, even down to access to your employee contact details. You as the employer can view all past, current and upcoming leave in the company-wide Connect calendar, and you can amend it as needed, change it as needed. You have the ability to approve leave requests remotely. So from any of those devices we talked about that have internet access, any device you happen to be at any time, regardless of whether you're in the office, whether you're out on the road, whether you're just busy running your business. So with Connect, again, employers can keep track of employee personal information, such as their current contact details, the most up-to-date ones from a GDPR perspective, their payroll reports, and your company holiday schedule on the go. One of the most comprehensive features, I think, in Connect is the fact that documents can be uploaded for individual employees, or multiple employees. So things like employee contracts, handbooks, each of those can be uploaded, and they have a detailed activity log for each document, showing you when and how often your employees are accessing the documents, so the important information that you send them is being tracked. And again, employees can access pay slips and documents. They're automatically available to employees on their Connect, so that they can be downloaded or printed or accessed anytime. So Connect has the ability to assign multiple users. It's a very important feature. So whether it is maybe your accountant, a colleague in the business, your pension advisor, really anyone else who may need access to your payroll data for your company, you can use Connect to grant them access to the employer dashboard, so that they can get what they need, like we said earlier, kind of streamlining those processes without the need to go through you. The employee smartphone app that we launched last year, that gives employees access to the self-service tools. So those are fully secure, fully GDPR compliant, and they're things like the payslip and document library and the annual leave request tool. But above all of this, it allows you as the employer to stay, I suppose, in control of your people management, because every request for annual leave or for personal detail changes or anything that happens on your Connect, those requests, they go straight to you. So they go straight to your employer dashboard, to your computer, your tablet, so that you can view, you can amend them, you can reject them, you can look at all of these requests in real time at a time that suits you. And I will say again, security, it does remain kind of an overreaching primary concern for businesses. So I do want to drill home that Connect uses fully secure, fully compliant Microsoft Azure EU-based servers. So all of your data is completely and totally secure. And then access to Connect, that is individually password protected from both an employer and an employee perspective. So that's an awful lot of information I've just given you there. So if you just bear with me for a second, I'm actually going to jump into Connect so that I can maybe show you the platform itself live. I think that's probably the best way to show you all the features and maybe give you a few ideas about how they might actually work for you. So just bear with me one moment. This is your employee login screen, and I can just log in here. As I said, it's individually password protected, so it's not something you're going to have to worry about. So here you are going to have access to your employer dashboard. This is the first thing that you're going to see when you log on to Connect. So here you have the dashboard. This employer dashboard is kind of an overview of what you will see in Connect. So here you have your notifications. This is all the notifications of requests that your employees have made or things that need your attention on Connect. Here is just a quick brief overview of your employer details. a brief overview of what is due to revenue and any upcoming events on your employee calendar.
It's a nice at a glance view of what's going on, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So here, what you have up here are your tabs. This first tab is your employees tab. So this tab here will bring you to all of your individual employee profiles. And if we just click here into a profile, say Aoife Byrne, this is the screen. This is what Aoife sees. So this is what's available to her on her Connect login screen. So she is able to see the requests that she's made, the documents that are available to her. She's able to see the information, the most up-to-date information that her employer holds on her, and she's able to have a quick glance at her leave calendar.
And if we think about going back to our GDPR and our employer obligations in terms of employment, we have to keep certain information on employees, and this ticks off many of those boxes. And this is what Aoife sees when she logs in as well. So we're ticking off that box as well in relation to that transparency and the employee having access to the information, and also the update feature there as well, that she can update it herself.
Yeah. So if we go then into the next tab here, the reports tab. So this is one of those features I was speaking about to you earlier about in terms of the reporting and allowing other parties to have access to the data, or even for yourself to have access to the data separate to your desktop. So you have a breakdown here of various different reports that you have populated from your Thesaurus Payroll Manager every time you sync your data to the cloud. So you have things like your annual leave summary, which is a great tool. You can run that report and at a glance see all of the upcoming leave, all of the leave broken down by employees and how much leave they've taken or requested.
You just mentioned they're syncing Thesaurus, that it's just at a click of a button, you sync your payroll manager with the Connect, and that all your data then is backed up. It's really just that simple to keep your backup.
Yeah, so like I said, those chronological backups are kept, and also every time that the backup is done, it repopulates this with the most current information. So again, back here to our calendar. So this is a kind of a company-wide snapshot of exactly what's going on in the leave in your company. So you can quickly look here and see, say, Amy has a day of annual leave booked and Aoife has a day of unpaid leave booked. So these are all color-coded, they're all broken down. These can be amended by yourself, or this will reflect any of the requests that you've approved from your employees. So back here to the tabs again, and the revenue tab. So this tab is where it kind of dives a little bit deeper into your revenue information. So this is broken down here, and all of these reports can be run anytime. They can again be exported. These can be used by any of the external stakeholders, your accountant or your finance, whoever looks after these reports. They don't need to go through you. They can have their own user access to them. And again, they can be downloaded and printed anytime. So here in our document section, this really is one of the most feature-rich aspects of Connect. And I say that because this is where you can upload all of your documents to your employees, your contracts, your handbooks, your training information, your policies and your procedures. So if we click here into this document, this is Aoife Byrne's contract of employment. So we can assign a category to any of these documents. And one of the fantastic things is that you can add or edit a category specifically for your business. So if you have something that you really need a category for, something that your business uses, you can change those or edit them or add them at any time. So you can upload any document here, Word documents or PDF documents, and then you will set who you want to have access to that document. So whether you want it to be a single employee or company-wide or a particular department. And then I want to tie it back in earlier to what we were saying about activity logs. This is where you can then track who is viewing this document, when they're viewing it and how often they're viewing it.
Yeah, and we've actually had a customer of ours who was in the unfortunate situation where they had a WRC inspection, but they were able to go in here and use this evidence as part of their defence, which was really useful in their case.
So back then into Connect and to our last tab, this is our settings tab. So this is where you're going to really start to personalize Connect to meet your business needs. So here you can set things like your contact details. That is what will appear on your employees app as the point of contact for the business. You can set your logo, and that's what they'll see when they log in. You can really tailor it to what you want for your business.
Absolutely, and if you decided you love Connect, you love the backup, but you don't necessarily want to use the annual leave request feature, you can turn that off as well.
Yeah, you can enable or disable the calendar. If you turn this feature off, it just won't appear on your employees app or on your employees dashboard. It just won't be a feature available to them. So I think that's a very quick overview of Connect. We do more in-depth demos for anybody who is interested. We do regular demos, live demos of the software that kind of delves a little bit deeper into the features and what they do and how to use them. So I suppose that wraps up the main part of our webinar here today. So we're going to move on to, I suppose, the questions section.
Yeah, just bear with us there for a moment till we bring up our questions, but I just see one or two that have come in earlier on, so I just kind of get to them while Jen's opening up that. Marie has asked us, do temp seasonal employees under 18 have to sign a contract? Yes, Marie, absolutely, and you'd have a specific temporary contracts that you need to give temp staff, and there's different pieces of information that would need to be in that type of contract. For example, with a temporary contract, you need to say how long that contract is lasting, what is the termination date. For those under 18, you certainly need to, there's different legislation again in relation to minors and those under 18 in relation to rest breaks and hours that they can work. So it's very important that you have that in place. So yes is the answer to your question there, Marie.
So we have a question pop in. Do you run a webinar for employees only, or do we have to give training to employees on the features of Connect? Now, we do have employee resources. We have some handouts that you can print or you can send to your employees. We also have some employee videos to show them what Connect is and how to use it. If anybody needs access to those, you can drop us an email. We can arrange for you to have access to those documents or those videos.
Just another question in, can you have different users that have different access rights? You can, Jen, can't you?
So there is two different types. There is standard users and there is administrators. So administrators have kind of administration rights, so they have full control over what happens in Connect. They can add other users and other administrators, and then standard users have limited access to only features that they have been set access to by their administrator.
There's another one coming in there. What if your employees are not digital, and do you still need that? They're not computer literate, they're not on smartphone. Do you still need the cloud? Well, the cloud is it's not compulsory. It's definitely a benefit, and it can really help you. But it's not compulsory. And if your employees are not using smartphones or are not computer literate, well, maybe it's not for you, but it's maybe something you could look into, or we also could use it for the backups.
I will say that it can kind of be viewed as two separate things. So you can use all of the features of the cloud as an employer. So you can use the access yourself to the employer dashboard, the access to the reports, the access to all of the information, and you have the option to select particular employees. So if you had employees that you do definitely know are digital and do want access, you can allow those employees access. But if you have employees who are, it's not an all or nothing product. It's more of a menu. You can pick features that you find useful, and you don't necessarily have to give all of your employees access. You can just give certain employees access, or you can use the the data yourself as the employer. And we would always recommend that you take a cloud backup. It is definitely the most secure way to keep your data safe and keep it matching up with what revenue has with you and what your payroll has with you.
Just the next question coming in there, what is the cost per license for the product? So this year, Saurus Connect is free for all our Saurus customers, so up until the end of the year. So if you're not using it now, you could really, it's a great opportunity to get using it and get familiar with it and to see, is it for you? And then our pricing model from January will be per employee. So if we say you have 10 employees per month, that's going to cost you €3.90. So you're looking at an annual cost of just €46. And we do have a little calculator where you can put in your employee numbers and it'll quote the price for you. So it's quite reasonable for a small employer, and we'll include that little calculator in our email follow-up afterwards.
As a small business with 12 employees, I currently use the Saurus Payroll to record employee leave, etc. Is that sufficient? So it depends. It depends on how you're backing up that information. As I said earlier, I would always recommend that you have an external backup, specifically a cloud backup, just because that is secure. It means you're not going to lose all of that information.
Yeah, and also another thing to consider there is the duration that you need to hold different records. So if you have your payroll record with employee leave for, let's say 2015, and that's on that thesaurus file from your 2015, just because for different periods, for example, like parental leave records, you need to keep them for 12 years. So do you have access to all that information for 12 previous Saurus Payroll Manager years? We're in the cloud backup, it'll all be there.
Yeah, it's there, it's accessible.
If you've used the source word, you can bring it in.
Yeah. So then what is the name of the app for Employee Connect? Is it on Google Play Store? Yes, it is on Google Play Store. It is on the App Store for iPhones as well. It is called BrightPay. So you can, once your employees, you will be able to allow your employees to access it by sending them an invitation email. And once they have been given that invitation email and sent out to them, then they have the ability to go on and download the BrightPay app. So next question that's popped in here is, if you decide to try the Connect between now and December, could you just use as an employer and see what you think before considering to roll it out to your employees? Absolutely. I think I touched on this in one of the previous questions. It's got a lot of features. The employee app is one of them. You can still use it for all of the employer features. You can still use it for the dashboard, for the reporting functions, for your own records without rolling it out to your employees. Get used to it, figure out how it's best going to work for your business. Then when it's up and running, you can potentially roll it out to your employees at any date.
And also just to come in there, Jen, once the new year hits and the new pricing structure comes in place, there's actually no contract. So if you were signed up and you paid for 1 month at the whatever rate and you decided it's not for me, there's no contract. You can just end it straight away as well.
Yeah, so that ties in with the next question, Helena. How easy is it to return? You're not tied into any contract. You're not tied into anything. You would just, as I said, it's a month-on-month basis, so you're not obligated to keep running with it.
And you're still always using your existing Saurus, so it's an add-on as opposed to a change.
Yeah, so you're still using your payroll software. You're still doing everything exactly the same as you are. You're just adding an extra layer, I suppose, into it. And so how do I get this Saurus Connect added to my Thesaurus software? So there is a setup process in your Thesaurus. You may have seen a pop-up on your Thesaurus Payroll Manager recently encouraging you to look into your Connect because you have access to your free license. So if you see that pop-up, you can just click on that and that will give you all the instructions. You can also go onto our website. Under our support documents, we have a section called Employer Connect, and that gives you all of the details that you need to sign up.
Actually, just if you were having trouble signing up, or if you'd like somebody to ring you and maybe take you through the process, we have a short questionnaire when you sign out of the webinar today, and maybe in one of the comment boxes you could just say, could somebody could somebody contact me and we can take you through it as well? That's no problem either.
And I will say that on your screen, connect@thesaurussoftware.com is our support email. If you do want to get in touch that way, we will get back to you on that. So the next question we have is, to use the Connect from now till Christmas, is it easy to set up? I can honestly tell you it literally takes 30 seconds to set it up. It's done within your payroll manager. It's, I think, 3 steps, and then that is the backup setup. That populates all of your information into Connect, and then it's up to you to kind of use it however much or however little that you want. You can access all of the features from there, but the setup process is literally 3 steps.
Yeah, and then there's the next one, just kind of a little bit of clarity on the price, I suppose. Is that $3.90 per employee per month or per annum? No, that's per month. That's an example. If I had 10 employees, it would cost me €3.90 per month. If I had 15 employees, it's a sliding scale. If I had 15 employees, it would cost me €5.50 per month. If I had 30 employees, it would cost me €10.10 a month.
So as I touched on earlier, it's kind of a product that can scale up or down. So it's a product that it's tied to your thesaurus. So it's based on however many employees you have running on your payroll. So if your business is seasonal, it will adjust month on month based on how many employees you have that particular month.
Okay, I think that's coming to an end now of our time allowed and questions coming in. But if you do have any questions that you think of, sorry, one more, do we have time for one more question that's coming in?
Yeah.
We might, or we can come back to that one.
So it's kind of a detailed question, John, on in terms of actual specifics and setups.
We might get contact John directly afterwards.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout directly and kind of answer those questions for you.
Perfect.
But again, all of that information, I will say, is if you wanted to get a more specific product demo, all of that information is on the demo that's given. So you would get answers to all of those questions on a demo.
Okay, so with that, I think we'll leave it there. As I said, please fill in your questions or any other thoughts that you had when you're going through the questionnaire at the end. That'd be great as well. And thank you very much for your time today. We hope you found it informative and useful.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.